Brother made my life hell and got my wife pregnant. Now he wants my help. After our parents disowned him and left me their $2 million inheritance. Before watching the video, right where you are watching it in the comments, subscribe and like so that more people can watch this video. Enjoy. My name's Aaron, 36 male, and if I sound unhinged writing this, it's because my hands are literally shaking as I type. I keep replaying every single moment of my life where I defended my brother, Mark, 34, to people who said he was trouble. Every time I told myself, he's blood, he'll grow out of it. And then he proved me the biggest fool alive by getting my wife pregnant. Mark has always been the black hole in my life. From childhood, he had this way of pulling everyone's attention, and not in a good way. Broken windows, stolen cash from my dresser, cops bringing him home at 16 for shoplifting. My parents, instead of dealing with it, just enabled him. He's just finding himself. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, the fixer, the one who had to make sure the bills were paid when Mom and Dad were fighting over Mark's latest disaster. I remember one night vividly, senior year of high school. I'd been studying for a scholarship exam. Mark barges in wasted and pukes all over my desk. All my notes destroyed. Parents? They laughed it off, cleaned him up, and told me I was overreacting. That was the template of my life. I worked, he wrecked, and then came Leah, my wife. Or I guess ex-wife, though I still can't even bring myself to call her that out loud. Leah was light, smart, grounded, the first person who ever made me feel like I wasn't just the responsible brother. We met at a library of all places. She was studying social work. I was cramming for certification exams. She had this laugh, soft but real, and I swear it cracked something open in me. She believed in me in a way no one ever had. For years I protected that relationship like it was sacred. I thought I had finally broken out of Mark's shadow, but shadows move. They creep. Mark always had this magnetism. Even when he was self-destructing, people were drawn to him. My parents called it charm. I called it manipulation. He could get people to forgive anything, stealing from friends, blowing rent money, disappearing for weeks. And Leah? God, this is the part that makes me want to punch a wall. She pitted me against him. Not on purpose at first, maybe, but she'd say things like, "He's funny, Aaron. I don't know why you're always so hard on him." Or, "He just needs support." And I'd grit my teeth and tell her what she wanted to hear. That maybe she was right. What I didn't know was that while I was working the late shifts, climbing my way up to a stable income, Mark was circling her, worming into the cracks of our marriage, the ones I didn't even know were there. He was in our home constantly because Leah would invite him over to check in. I'd come home to find him on our couch, beer in hand, laughing with her like he belonged there. The night it all snapped, I'll never forget. A fight between Leah and me, something small about bills. She screamed, "At least Mark listens to me." And in that second, before I even knew the whole truth, my gut knew. I didn't just lose my wife that night. I lost the last shred of family I thought I had. I wish I could say I found out about Leah and Mark in some cinematic, dramatic way, but it was quieter, almost crueler in its normalcy. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember because I had just landed a major contract at work the day before and came home buzzing with the kind of pride I never allowed myself to show too much. I wanted to surprise Leah with flowers, maybe cook dinner together. She was in the bathroom when I walked in. The door cracked just enough that I could hear her muffled voice. She was on the phone, and then I heard it. "I don't know how to tell him, Mark. He's going to hate us both. But it's yours." The test was positive. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to be sick right there in the hallway. For a second I hoped it was a hallucination. I pushed the door open, and the look on her face when she saw me, pure naked terror. Her phone slipped right out of her hand and hit the tile. I don't even remember what I said. My ears were ringing. I just remember her grabbing at me, babbling, "Aaron, I'm sorry. It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't mean for this." While I backed away like she was a stranger who'd broken into my home. That night I sat in my truck for hours, parked 2 blocks away, gripping the steering wheel until my hands went numb. I couldn't bring myself to go back inside. Couldn't bring myself to call anyone. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's smug face in my house, my bed, and my wife. When I finally did tell my parents, I thought maybe they'd have my back. I was their son. Blood. Betrayed. But no. My mom's first words were, "Well, Leah must have been very lonely if you were always working." My dad shrugged and muttered something about Mark never did handle boundaries well. That was it. My life was crumbling, and they are excusing him like he'd broken a vase, not destroyed my marriage. I lost it. I shouted at them. Years of pent-up resentment spilling out. "You raised a parasite, and now he's taken everything from me." My mom's face hardened like stone. "If you can't be compassionate, maybe you should take a look at yourself, Aaron." That was the first moment I realized I was truly alone. Leah left 2 weeks later, moving in with Mark. My parents helped them, of course. Gave them furniture, money, everything. Meanwhile, I was eating instant noodles in an empty apartment, staring at the ghost of the life I'd built. But life is cruelly patient. It lets you think you've hit rock bottom only to show you another trap door. Because months later, when my parents' will was read, the universe flipped the script in a way none of us saw coming. I wish I could say I found out about Leah and Mark in some cinematic, dramatic way, but it was quieter, almost crueler in its normalcy. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember because I had just landed a major contract at work the day before and came home buzzing with a kind of pride I never allowed myself to show too much. I wanted to surprise Leah with flowers, maybe cook dinner together. She was in the bathroom when I walked in. The door cracked just enough that I could hear her muffled voice. She was on the phone. And then I heard it. "I don't know how to tell him, Mark. He's going to hate us both. But it's yours." The test was positive. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to be sick right there in the hallway. For a second I hoped it was a hallucination. I pushed the door open, and the look on her face when she saw me, pure naked terror. Her phone slipped right out of her hand and hit the tile. I don't even remember what I said. My ears were ringing. I just remember her grabbing at me, babbling, "Aaron, I'm sorry. It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't mean for this," while I backed away like she was a stranger who'd broken into my home. That night I sat in my truck for hours, parked 2 blocks away, gripping the steering wheel until my hands went numb. I couldn't bring myself to go back inside. Couldn't bring myself to call anyone. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's smug face in my house, my bed, and my wife. When I finally did tell my parents, I thought maybe they'd have my back. I was their son. Blood. Betrayed. But no. My mom's first words were, "Well, Leah must have been very lonely if you were always working." My dad shrugged and muttered something about, "Mark never did handle boundaries well." That was it. My life was crumbling, and they were excusing him like he'd broken a vase, not destroyed my marriage. I lost it. I shouted at them. Years of pent-up resentment spilling out. You raised a parasite, and now he's taken everything from me. My mama's face hardened like stone. If you can't be compassionate, maybe you should take a look at yourself, Aaron. That was the first moment I realized I was truly alone. Leah left 2 weeks later, moving in with Mark. My parents helped them, of course. Gave them furniture, money, everything. Meanwhile, I was eating instant noodles in an empty apartment, staring at the ghost of the life I'd built. But life is cruelly patient. It lets you think you've hit rock bottom, only to show you another trap door. Because months later, when my parents' will was read, the universe flipped the script in a way none of us saw coming. The will reading felt like sitting front row at a demolition derby. It was me, Mark, the lawyer, and a couple of distant relatives who didn't matter in the grand scheme. I was still numb from losing my parents. Despite everything, they were still my mom and dad. I'd half expected some twisted, split everything evenly setup that would force me to share oxygen with Mark for the rest of my life. But when the lawyer started reading, my chest tightened. The language was cold, direct. To our son Aaron, who has always carried the weight of this family with dignity, we leave our estate in full. Then came the part that made my blood run cold. To our son Mark, who has continually abused our trust, brought shame to our family, and refused to take responsibility for his actions, we leave nothing. It was like watching a guillotine fall. Mark's face went red, then pale, then red again. His fists clenched on the table. At first he laughed, this weird, high-pitched cackle that didn't sound human. "Nice joke," he sneered. "Where's the real will?" The lawyer stayed calm, slid the documents across the table, notarized and sealed. "This is the only will. Your parents were very clear." That's when the explosion hit. Mark shot to his feet, knocking over his chair, spittle flying from his mouth as he screamed at me. "You poisoned them against me! You've always been jealous, and now you've stolen everything that should have been mine!" I sat there frozen, every muscle taut, while he tore through the room. Papers went flying, the lawyer yelling at him to calm down. At one point, Mark grabbed the framed photo of our parents from the desk and smashed it on the floor, glass shattering like a gunshot. Then he turned on me, eyes wild. "You think you've won? You don't get to walk away with their money and act like some saint while I get nothing. You owe me. I'm your brother." Brother. That word felt like poison. I stood finally and told him flatly, "You took my wife, you took my life. I don't owe you a damn thing." His response? He lunged across the table at me. It took the lawyer and one of the assistants to pull him off while he screamed, "I'll make you pay, Aaron. You'll regret this." When I walked out, a glass crunching under my shoes, I knew something deep in my gut. This wasn't over. Mark wasn't the kind of man to lick his wounds and disappear. He was the kind who'd burn the whole house down if he couldn't sit in it. And sure enough, within days, the fallout began. Update. I didn't think I'd be back here so soon, but the comments on my last post were blowing up. Half of you saying lawyer up. Already did. The other half saying go no contact and working on it. And some of you honestly made me laugh when I hadn't laughed in weeks. Shout out to the guy who told me to buy a flamethrower and defend the inheritance like a medieval castle. Tempting, my dude. But here's the thing. I wasn't wrong when I said Mark wouldn't take the will lying down. The first week after the reading, he went full scorched earth on me. He showed up at my apartment at 3 a.m., pounding on the door, screaming loud enough that neighbors called the cops. When that didn't work, he tried texting Leah in front of me, bragging about how I was hoarding a blood money. Yeah, she actually forwarded me screenshots like it was funny. Then came the vandalism. One morning I walked out to find my tires slashed clean through, every single one. Another day, someone spray-painted thief across the side of my truck in red. Subtle, right? Police reports were filed, but with no cameras and no witnesses, it was my word against his temper. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, he dragged my parents' memory into it. He posted this rant on Facebook about how I brainwashed mom and dad in their final days and stole the inheritance. Half the family liked or commented with sad face emojis, like I was some kind of grave robber. The narrative was spreading and fast. I could have ignored it, but every time I saw my parents' faces smeared across social media with Mark's bile underneath, it ate me alive. They weren't perfect. They failed me in 1,000 ways, but in the end, they chose me. And I'll be damned if I let Mark rewrite their legacy as his tragedy. So I started planning, quietly, patiently, not for violence, not for court battles, but for something cleaner, more final, a revenge that would gut him the way he gutted me. See, Mark's entire identity has always been about appearances. The charming brother, the life of the party, the misunderstood rebel who just needed a break. He thrives on pity and attention. Without it, he's nothing. So I ask myself, what's the one thing he couldn't survive being exposed for? And that's when it hit me. Leah. The baby. The story he was spinning about that being a new man. He'd been parading that kid as proof he'd finally changed. Facebook posts, baby shower photos, all of it. But what people didn't know? What Leah let slip in her panic texts. That the child might not even be his. I didn't rush it. That was the key. With Mark, patience was a weapon because he never had any. He always wanted the hit right now. Attention, money, women, pity. I knew if I set the fuse slow enough, he'd light the rest of it himself. So I started gathering. Leah wasn't subtle, never had been. She was texting old friends about not being sure the baby was Mark's, complaining that Aaron deserved better. I still had access to some of our shared cloud accounts from when we were married, and buried in there was gold. Screenshots, messages, timelines that didn't line up. But the nail in the coffin came from a friend of hers, someone who clearly hated Mark and wasn't shy about telling me. One night over beers, this guy handed me the ultimate gift. A picture of Leah, pregnant belly and all, curled up with another man. Not Mark. Someone she'd been seeing before she moved in with him. Now, I could have taken that to Mark privately and let him implode in silence. But where's the satisfaction in that? No, this had to be public. So I waited for the baby's shower. Big event, rented hall, balloons, family, friends, even some of my relatives who'd been swallowing Mark's sob story whole. I showed up uninvited, just long enough to drop off a gift. And what a gift it was. Inside the neatly wrapped box wasn't a toy or a blanket. It was a stack of printed screenshots, every incriminating text, every photo, every shred of doubt about who the father really was. Right on top in big bold letters, "Mark, are you sure this is your kid?" I left it on the gift table and walked out. Didn't stick around for the fireworks, but I heard them. Apparently, Leah opened it in front of everyone, thinking it was something cute. When she saw what it was, she went pale, tried to hide it, but Mark snatched the papers from her. Witnesses said he went berserk, screaming at her, throwing chairs, demanding names while the guests sat in horrified silence. Someone filmed it, of course, and within hours it was all over Facebook. His carefully crafted Family Man redemption arc went up in smoke in real time. The same relatives who had pitied him now saw him for the unstable disaster he was. Leah stormed out. The guys she'd been seeing confirmed everything online. And Mark? He was left standing in a rented hall full of shredded balloons and pitying stares, clutching a pile of papers that proved he'd lost everything. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the one on the outside. Mark did. But if you think he took that lying down, you don't know my brother. Update number 2. Well, I guess I owe you all another chapter because holy hell, the last post blew up. First off, to the person who commented, "Bro turned a baby shower into Jerry Springer Live." I spit coffee on my phone. Accurate. But yeah, the aftermath was even messier than I imagined. The video of Mark's meltdown spread fast. Someone's cousin posted it on TikTok, and within 48 hours had thousands of views. Him screaming, flipping tables, yelling, "Who is he?" While pregnant Leah cried in the corner. It was brutal. And the internet? Not sympathetic. People called him unhinged, abusive, pathetic. Mark lost his job 2 days later. His boss apparently didn't love having an employee trending as baby shower psycho. Leah packed up and left, moving in with her mom. Word is the other guy stepped up and claimed the baby, which meant the one thing Mark was clinging to, the new family narrative, vanished overnight. And that's when his rage turned full force on me. First came the late-night voicemails. 30 seconds of pure venom. "You ruined my life, Aaron. You'll regret this. Blood doesn't turn its back." Sometimes he was crying, sometimes screaming. Once he was whispering, which was somehow worse. Then came the break-in attempt. I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of someone jiggling my front door, called the cops. They found Mark drunk in the parking lot, shirt ripped, slurring about how this is my house too. He spent the night in county and blew up my phone the second he got out, alternating between begging me for money and threatening to end me. I upgraded my locks, installed cameras, even had a buddy crash on my couch a few nights. But the real kicker, he started dragging random people into it. Old friends, relatives, even my co-workers, sending them messages about how I'd stolen everything from him, begging them to convince me to give him his share. And the wildest part, some actually reached out. An aunt called me saying, "Aaron, he's your brother. Can't you help him a little?" As if I hadn't already sacrificed half my life to his chaos. But here's the thing, and maybe this makes me colder than I realized. I didn't feel guilty anymore. Not an ounce. Watching him unravel, watching the golden boy finally wear the mask I'd been warning everyone about for decades. It felt like justice. Not the kind a court hands down. The kind life reserves for people who never stop taking. Still, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't looking over my shoulder. Mark's not the type to go quietly. He's the type to make a scene. And I've got this sinking feeling he's not done. The last straw came 2 weeks later. I was getting off work, exhausted, just wanting to grab takeout and crash. As I pulled into my apartment lot, I saw it immediately. My truck windshield smashed in, glass glittering across the seats. Spray paint all over the side again, but this time it wasn't just thief, it was murderer. My stomach dropped. That word, it felt different, more dangerous. I barely had time to process before I heard shouting. Mark, stumbling out from behind the dumpsters, wild-eyed, holding a crowbar like it was an extension of his rage. "You killed them!" he screamed. "Mom and Dad are dead because of you! You poisoned them against me! You stole my life!" He charged. Full sprint, crowbar raised. And in that split second, it hit me. If I didn't act, this wasn't going to end with broken glass. It was going to end with blood. Instinct took over. I bolted back into my truck, slammed the door, and hit the horn loud enough that half the complex came out onto their balconies. Mark froze, breathing hard, weapon in hand, surrounded by witnesses. Then the sirens. Someone had already called. Cops swarmed within minutes. They wrestled him down as he screamed obscenities at me, at them, at the world. Spit flying, veins bulging, his voice breaking until it was just sobs. He's my brother. He's supposed to help me. That was the last time I saw Mark outside of a courtroom. He's facing charges: assault, vandalism, trespassing. The restraining order is airtight now. And me? I'm left sitting in the quiet of my apartment, staring at the $2 million inheritance I never asked for. Never wanted to be tangled in like this. Here's the thing, though. For the first time in my life, I feel free. No more carrying him, no more explaining him, no more sacrificing myself on the altar of family loyalty. My parents may have failed me in life, but in death they gave me one last gift: a clean break. Leah, haven't spoken to her since the baby shower. Word is she's moved on with the real father, trying to piece together some semblance of normal. Good for her. She's no longer my problem. And Mark? He's where he's always belonged. Alone, facing consequences he can't charm his way out of. For once, he's not the center of my world. He's just noise. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself staring at the broken wedding photo I never threw away. The glass is cracked right across our smiles. It reminds me of everything I lost and everything I survived. Because, yeah, my brother made my life hell. But in the end, he burned himself down. I just made sure the whole world saw the flames,